Welcome back to Unveiling the Covenants, exploring the mystery of the Father's love from the pages of sacred scripture and the heart of the church. I'm Marcus Peter. Today we're talking about the continuation of the story of Jacob. So I'm going to round off the narrative here. Jacob has returned to the land of his father, essentially the land of Canaan. It's unfortunately still named after Canaan. And he is reconciled with his brother Esau. His father Isaac will eventually die. Before his father's death, however, Jacob, his name will be changed to Israel. God will appear to him and change his name to Israel, he who struggles with God. And this will be, again, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, a kind of foreshadowing of the life of Israel as a nation with their relationship with God. It's a tremendously powerful prophetic utterance about the way they are going to live. But there's a further narrative at play here. It is by means of this wrestling with God that Israel will come to deeper fidelity with God. And of course, in their wrestling, if they turn away from God, then they will have incurred upon themselves the curses and the unfortunate mishaps that will befall them. Now, his name will be changed to Israel. From that point on, all of them will be known as the children of Israel. Joseph was the 11th son to be born to Jacob, to Israel, when he was on a sojourn, when he was living in Padan Aram with his uncle Laban. Now that he's back in the land of Canaan, he will have one more child, Benjamin. Now remember, Joseph was the child of Rachel, and so the truth of the matter is Jacob, Israel, was not even sure that his bride Rachel could have children. And then she did have Joseph. The Lord opened her womb, as the scriptures say. But they will go on to talk about how she will have Benjamin. Now, as much of a blessing as Benjamin is, Rachel will die shortly after. And so Jacob, Israel, will love the children of Rachel more than his first 10 sons. Now, that sounds like a recipe for tremendous familial harmony. I don't think. In fact, exactly what happens is exactly what you think will happen. Because he favors the last 2 sons over the first 10. More than that, he will treat Joseph with particular favor because remember what we've been talking about the role of the firstborn son in covenant identity? For Jacob, Israel, he doesn't really treat the first 10 sons as older sons. He doesn't treat Reuben as the rightful heir to the throne, rightful heir to the covenant. Instead, from the moment he had Joseph, he treats Joseph as if Joseph were his firstborn. Now, Joseph is firstborn of Rachel, but he wasn't firstborn of Israel. He wasn't firstborn of Jacob, because Jacob had other sons through Leah. Reuben is angered by this, and in fact, he will do something heinous. Just putting this out there, but I don't want to explore this too much. He will sleep with his father's concubine and so defile his father's bed, and thereby incur the curse of not receiving the covenant blessings. The sons after Reuben will also do some heinous evil things, Simeon and Levi. And so eventually, blessings will go to Judah, but Judah himself is not tremendously virtuous either. There's a narrative in Genesis that talks about how Judah winds up impregnating his daughter-in-law through the language of a levirate marriage. Now, we'll talk about that in some future series. I want to go through the grander narrative here. The point of the matter is, Jacob has proven himself to be faithful now in hindsight, but throughout his life he has done some tremendously unfaithful things. And now his children, his sons, are doing the same thing. And it's really bad, to say the least. Children of the covenant, leaders, elders of this new tribe that is Israel, nation that is Israel, these 12 sons will become the forefathers of the 12 tribes, and they are proving themselves to be untrustworthy. God will single out Joseph, however. God has plans for Joseph. And note, as we keep talking about the Old Testament Joseph, the Old Covenant Joseph, I want you to see 2 particular figures in his life story. Number one, as we look ahead, we will see in the person of Joseph, the Old Testament figure, the New Testament figure of Joseph. And there will be parallels there. But number 2, secondly, I also want you to pay attention to the fact that Joseph will become a kind of Christ figure. There will be allegorical realities to the life of Joseph. So I want to jump ahead here. Joseph is now the favored son, and Jacob makes no qualms about showing it. In fact, he's making it abundantly clear to everyone who is going to be heir to the throne, heir to the tribe nation that is now Israel. Chapter 37. Jacob, Israel, dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan, as I've mentioned. This is the history of the family of Jacob. Joseph, at this point, 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. He was a lad with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's concubines. And Joseph brought an ill report of them to their father. Now, you might be thinking, gosh, what a tattletale. And especially here in the United States, we despise and loathe people who tattle. Like we train our children to never become tattletales. And there's a lot of truth to that to some degree. But I want you to understand that what's happening here is more than tattletaling. Joseph giving this ill report to his father is him functioning as a kind of foreman or supervisor of his brothers. He's essentially exercising the role of a firstborn son. He's being prime minister to the kingship of his father. And so he's reporting to the king what the other ministers are failing to do well, except that this isn't just a political kingship, it's a family. And so you've got this political administrative reality at play in a messed up family dynamic. I mean, the harmony just isn't there. And so this 11th born son is acting like superior over the others because he's been treated as superior over the others. I mean, it probably suffices to say that Jacob has had conversations with Joseph about how he is the favorite. He will lead the tribe. He will lead the nation. And so what Joseph is doing, bringing an ill report, is carrying on the function of a kind of supervisor. Israel, the scriptures say, Jacob, Israel, loved Joseph more than any other of his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long robe with sleeves. Now, again, we've got these plays, right? Joseph in the Technicolor dream coat. It's fanciful language, I understand, and the scriptures do say that it was a robe of many colors because the brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and they hated him and could not speak to him. But this robe here, it's a little more than just a Technicolor dream coat. That's nice. That's nice. It's a kind of euphemism for the description of a greater reality, though. The robe was typically a symbol of sonship. Colors on robes were expensive. In fact, they were sometimes deemed impossible to get, short of forking out quite a significant amount of money. To dye the coat in numerous colors meant that a lot of wealth was poured into this robe. And so when you gift someone a robe of such affluence, you're connoting a symbol here. All of you are sons, you all have robes of your own regard. This son of mine gets the colored robe, the multicolored robe. This son of mine gets the robe that signifies his place amongst all of you. He is my successor. He is my heir. He is my son of sons, so to speak. And so there's a preferential treatment of Joseph. I want to expand a little here. As I mentioned before, you can think of him as Joseph in the New Testament, but also think of him in terms of Christological figures, Christological images, Christological realities. Joseph is the son of sons. He is in this case, the first amongst the others, the forerunner of the other sons. He is the son. He is the son of all the other sons. He is an image of Christ in that regard. Now, is it virtuous that Jacob favors Joseph over the others? Not entirely. But remember, Jacob was tricked into marrying Leah. And so that familial disharmony was introduced from the get-go of the marriage. And he is receiving of this, but he refuses to virtuously love all the others. He has always favored Rachel, and now he favors the children born of Rachel, his firstborn of Rachel, in this case Joseph. Joseph stands as one who wears the robe, the one who is the son who confers upon all the others their dignity of sonship, only after himself. Christ does that for us, except that, unlike the limited love of Jacob, the Father's love is unlimited. And so through Christ the Son, we are all inducted into sonship. We are all inducted into childhood in the covenant. And so that defines a newfound role in the covenant family that we wouldn't have outside of baptism. Our sonship is in Christ. And that's why spiritually it is right to say that it's not sonship and daughtership, because we share in the sonship of Christ. That isn't a negation of women. It's not a negation of the fact that women are daughters. It really is a theological language of filiation. God doesn't have daughters in the Trinity. He has a Son in the Trinity. And yes, from all eternity, the Son of God, who now we know to be Jesus Christ, does not have a male gender, so to speak, male sex, so to speak, until he takes on human nature. And then he baptizes human nature in general, but in a specific way, the maleness of the human nature, not to elevate it over femaleness. That's not what I'm saying. Rather, he elevates it to talk about how in the person of God there is a reality of, right now, frankly, in divine nature, assuming the human nature, there is maleness in the person of God. And so the sonship of Christ is the generative reality through which all of us, male and female, are brought into childhood in God. Now, again, once again, this is a theological reality. It's not a negation of womanhood by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, what it does is it confers upon male and female the collective dignity of sharing in the filiation of Christ without removing the dignity of maleness and femaleness. And is this a mystery? Absolutely. In Trinitarian intimacy, this is a mystery that's so profound, we can talk about it for eternity and never come to fully plumb its depths. And yet, this is the theological reality. And so, Joseph, in the Old Testament, receives of the sonship of Jacob, of Israel. And he is then to confer this sonship upon his brothers. Because if he is to become heir of the covenant, heir of the tribe, the blessing of the firstborn is to go to him, then he will have to be steward of all the others. And unfortunately, we're going to see that he's going to have to grow into that maturity. I have no doubt that he had his own vices in being favored. Now, here's the thing. Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they only hated him the more. Is it his fault that he had the dream? No, by no means. Rather, we have to understand that the communication of the dream by God is a message of an infinitely greater reality, Christological, as well as prophetically what's going to happen to Joseph and to the entire nation of Israel. Dreams, the halom in Hebrew, they tend to have a prophetic quality. We've lost sight of that, and yet people who live a baptized life, people who live infused with the divine life of the Holy Spirit, are called to practice a life of understanding that your dreams carry a weight, carry a favor, carry a fervor that the Lord wants to communicate to you. And so there is a way through which we can pray through even our dreams and to ask the Lord to give us dreams and even visions for that matter, and to ask him to speak to us through those things. But in Joseph's case, it's a particular gift because not only is he given dreams, he's also eventually given a prophetic capacity to interpret them. In a particular way, though, I also want to point out that Jacob, Israel, seems to have that gift of interpreting those dreams as well. Because look at this. Joseph had a dream. He told it to his brothers. They hated him because this was the dream. He says, "Hear this dream which I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us, or are you indeed to have dominion over us?" And they hated him yet more for his dreams and for his words. Now, you would think it was just a dream. Why hate him that much? It could be A, because he's bragging about the dream, but B, because everyone understood there might be a prophetic quality to the dream and they hated what was to come. That's the first thing. The second thing, more importantly, is, remember I talked about the Christological reality of this. Joseph is talking about a time when the Christ, the Messiah, will come from the line of Jacob. And so he will be the one to redeem the people, not just from famine, but from all sin and bondage. And so his sheaf, his wheat, wherein we will get the thanksgiving offering, the Todah offering of the Eucharist, his sheaves, his wheat, his bread, will rise above the others. And so all the world will come to bow before the person of Jesus Christ, who is the true Messiah, the true Lord. And just like how Joseph is hated, the children of Israel hated Christ. And before you say, therefore, the Jews have cut themselves off from the covenant promise, I want you to understand this very clearly. There is nothing in the scriptures that actually talks about this. Do not superimpose supersessionist language on the scriptures when nowhere do we see a repudiation of the covenant promises to the children of Israel by blood, because, make no mistake about this, you and I, as members of the new Israel, are not cut off from the old Israel. We're not a separate tree growing. Instead, you and I are grafted, as Paul says in Romans 11, 12, and 13, into the tree that is Israel. We are, if you will, those begotten out of time. But we are members, the new Israel, of the old Israel. Spiritually, in that regard, we are all children of the same Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that the children of Israel to this day profess to be children of Israel, of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. When you and I can understand this, when we go back to this verse, we understand that, yes, the Jews at the time did not bow before Christ. So how come in this dream all the other sheaves are bowing before him? Because at the name of Jesus, Philippians 2, Paul tells us, every knee will bow, every tongue confess. Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. In other words, when you hear this verse, instead of repudiating the Jews, ask yourself, as I will ask myself, have I always bowed down before Christ? Have there been times where I didn't? This is the lesson for us to wake up. Number two, is every nation across the world bowing before Jesus Christ right now? No. And so it is our obligation to make sure that the gospel is preached so that every nation may have the opportunity to bow before Jesus Christ. But make no mistake about this, at the end of time, all nations will bow down and proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Nations in heaven, on earth, and as Philippians 2 tells us, even under the earth, the souls in hell will acknowledge his lordship as well. This is an undeniable fact and reality. Jesus Christ is Lord. And this dream becomes a prophetic allusion to the eventual Christological fulfillment. Then Joseph, it says, dreamed another dream, and he told it to his brothers. He said, behold, I have dreamed another dream, and behold, the sun, the moon, the 11 stars were bowing down before me. But this time when he told it to his father and to his brothers, even his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you? And his brothers were now jealous of him. But his father kept the saying in mind. Now, this tells us that Israel had some capacity of understanding dreams and interpreting them. He had a wisdom from the Spirit about understanding the meaning of dreams. But again, look at the language here. This time, the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. We will see this language appear again numerous times, but in this particular combination, in Revelation 11, except it's not referring to a man, it's referring to a woman. Behold, I saw the Ark of the Covenant. That's the end of Revelation 11. The Ark was open. And then in Revelation 12, it opens. I saw a woman, a great portent appeared in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon beneath her feet, and a crown of not 11 but 12 stars, signifying that even Joseph is under her dominion. Now, this imagery shows up for this reason. To her has been given dominion over the moon, because the moon is beneath her feet. She's clothed with the sun. Up till this point, only one person in the entirety of the scriptures is mentioned as being clothed with the light of the sun, and that is God himself. And a crown of 12 stars. She rules as Queen Mother over the divine kingdom of the new Israel, which is the kingdom of heaven, which is the church on earth, in heaven, and in purgatory. Now, why does this matter? Because if you backtrack, I mentioned, you see Joseph think Jesus. What does this have to do with anything? Jesus Christ is the one who has lordship even over the sun, the moon, and the stars. And so his mother acts as Queen Mother in the kingship of her son. And so Joseph here is standing as a kind of pointing forward to Jesus. He's showing us even in these dreams that if we can look forward and see, gosh, God has a messianic plan, and this is what its fulfillment is going to look like. And Joseph will become a kind of prophetic allusion, if you will. a kind of prophetic pointing forward to the reality of all heaven, sun, moon, and stars, all earth, the wheat, and all souls under the earth, the ground, bowing down before the lordship of Jesus Christ. And right now, all of this will find a kind of prophetic pointing back, if you will, to Joseph. And so his brothers are now jealous because they're afraid that this is going to come true. And so they will stop at no end to stop this. And so this is what happens. His brothers went to pasture their flock near Shechem, their father's flock. Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are pasturing the flock. I send you to them." And so he says, "Go see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring me word again." Again, you might think it's favor. Oh, the lazy son who doesn't work. But remember what kind of man Jacob was. The other brother, Esau, he went out and hunted. He was a dude's dude, wanted to hunt all the time. He was away for weeks at a time. Back then, pasturing the flock wasn't just as simple as take it to the grass, come back that night. Sometimes you had to go for days. It was a few days of journey, or maybe an entire day of a journey. And in that entire day of a journey, you would see that Joseph would have to go supervise and report. So what was he doing at home then? While the other brothers are tending to the tremendous size of the flock. By this time, by the way, Jacob is tremendously wealthy. Yeah, Israel is tremendously wealthy. And so the other sons have a tremendous amount of work for them in terms of just feeding the flock and tending to them and caring for them against predators. Joseph stayed back to do what Jacob did when he was younger. He lived in tents. He learned administration. He was learning how to think, strategize, how to build, how to administrate, how to manage, how to steward. In short, he was learning the tools of leadership. He was learning the tools of division of labor. He was learning the tools of delegation. He was learning the tools of apportionment. He was learning the tools of planning ahead. He was learning the tools of speculating the winds and the waters and the rains and how that would eventually translate into the yield of the land. And if not the yield of the land, how to plan forward for that. In short, he was learning all the tools of wisdom necessary to become the eventual prime minister of Egypt. In this, God was already preparing him for the role to come. He just didn't know that was coming. There's a lesson at play here for all of us. We can't always see the full picture. And very often the roles that we're placed in right now, we don't quite always see what God has in store. What we do know is this: God has a tremendous amount in store for the future establishment of the grace and the glory of his kingdom in and through us. And so every gift that he puts us through, even something as simple as, when I think about my past, and many people know this about me, I used to be a gangster rapper and a breakdancer. And so I think, well, what on earth could that serve the kingdom today now that I've converted to Catholicism? Well, I learned microphone dynamics as a rapper. I learned stage dynamics as a performer. I learned choreography, and therefore I learned planning and execution as a breakdancer. I learned how to work in front of a camera as I was recording music videos. And so in doing all of this, I gained skills I didn't know I would use. And now here I am working with Ave Maria Radio and EWTN, doing both radio and TV work. And so all those old skills are coming to bear in a very fruitful way. It's coming to fruition in this life. Now, bizarre as that is, what God puts us through will not be wasted in terms of virtuous skills developed, useful skills developed. And so Joseph is learning all of this. It's implicit in the scriptures. We just need to learn how to read it. And so again, he's being treated as the prime minister. He goes to his brothers. But as he goes to his brothers, Joseph went after them. He found them at Dothan. They saw him far off. And before he came near, they conspired against him to kill him. Thankfully, because of Reuben, the firstborn son's behest, they stopped short. We don't know why Reuben did this. It's possible because he already lost his father's favor. He didn't want to lose his father's favor even further. And so what he does is he convinced them. Reuben heard it. He delivered him out of their hands and said, "Let's not take his life, shed no blood, cast him into this pit here in the wilderness, lay no hand upon him." Now, Reuben's intent was probably to come and rescue Joseph after and then regain his father's favor by saying, "Hey, I saved your favorite." But when Joseph came, they stripped him, his long robe, they tore it apart, and they cast him into the pit. And when they sat down to eat, Ishmaelites Ishmaelites came. And back then, the price of slaves was 20 shekels. It's not very much by any stretch of the imagination. That price will eventually rise to 30 shekels, 30 pieces of silver. Christ will be sold for the price of the going price of a slave. But going back, Joseph is sold for 20 shekels. And he's sold into slavery into kinsmen, Ishmaelites, who hate the covenant. And Judah is the one who sells him off. The irony of ironies, that it is from Judah that the Messiah will come, and it is this child of Judah that will be sold off for the same price, or the same way at least, and close to the price that Judah sold Joseph for. We will see the story come to full circle in the next episode, and we'll keep unpacking further. But know this heinous act God will use for good. Let us still, however, strive to be on the right side of salvation history by choosing the Lord, choosing His will, choosing His way in all things, not for our sake, but for the sake of the Lord our God and for the sake of the calling He has in store for us. We don't see the full picture, but labor forward we must for the glory of His name. We will continue the story in the next episode. Until next time, God bless you and keep you always. I'm Marcus Peter.